Hello again and welcome to part 3 of the urinary system. So far we looked at what excretion is and how it works. We've looked at kidneys and the nephron and the functions of the nephron. And then we started to look at some disorders. We looked at hemodialysis, kidney transplants, and now we're getting into urination or micturition. So that is when we empty our bladder. And there's both involuntary and voluntary components. So, okay, there we go. So here's female and male, obviously. And then they have sphincters that are involved. The internal sphincter is smooth muscle, so it's involuntary. Our autonomic nervous system will do that for us. And the external sphincter is skeletal muscle, and we control that ourselves. And so bladder that's been stored in the urinary bladder, urine that's been stored in the urinary bladder, will have this detrusor muscle of the bladder start to contract. The sphincters will open, and then urine will go out the urethra, right? So you'll notice females have a separate hole for urination versus sexual reproduction, whereas males use the same. Ooh, fun fact. They did a study, whoever did this is great, and they looked at the amount of urine produced and the average duration of urination between different mammals, and they found that they all averaged about 21 seconds. So regardless of amount, 21 seconds. So time yourself next time you urinate. The male's urethra is narrower, so males are going to generally urinate longer than females, but overall average, early 20s, 21 seconds. Cool. Okay, and then this is showing how we send the signals to contract. We're going to go to that smooth muscle of our bladder, and we're going to go to those sphincters to allow urination to occur. So urinary incontinence, that's where you're urinating when you're not wanting to, right? So before toddlers, infants have control over those autonomic and voluntary parts of their muscle contractions. They'll go whenever. Several different types of incontinence. Stress incontinence, not what you think. It's actually about increased pressure. Is more common in women. One of the times that you'll see that regularly is during pregnancy. As the uterus takes up more and more space in the middle of that abdominal pelvic region, the bladder will get pushed on more. And then urinary retention, failure to urinate properly. You can't expel the urine. So reasons that would happen, you could have a neurological disorder, but most likely it's after anesthesia. So what they'll have to do is they'll have to put a catheter in that acts as a little tube to help drain. You can hold about 1 liter on average in your bladder. You can hold a little bit more than that, but it's going to put pressure on everything, so you shouldn't hold it as long as you possibly can. Pretty fun. And if you hold too much, your bladder can burst, and you don't want urine getting around in your cavity in here. Okay, a UTI is a urinary tract infection. So it'll usually start in the urethra. You want to make sure if you're a female that you're not wiping feces up when you use your toilet paper, because that can increase the likelihood. And issues, pain, burning, blood in your urine. We'll look at a urine analysis in a little bit in the next slide, and we'll talk about how that could be indicators. You can see right here, there's 1, 2, 3 holes into the bladder. 2 where the ureters are coming in and from the kidneys, and 1 where the urethra is exiting. And that's called the trigon area. And a UTI can persist there quite well. You really don't want that UTI to go up into your ureters and into the kidney. If a urinary tract infection goes up to the kidneys, it can cause a lot of damage. Don't want that to happen. So we can test our urine to see its components using urine analysis. So this is a lab that I like to do in person. So you'll urinate into a cup, and then you have these test strips. And each of those little squares is testing for something in the urine. And so you'll dip the strip, take it out, and you'll wait. The first test will be like 30 seconds after, and then a minute, and the later ones will be like 2 minutes. And you're comparing the color in the square that you see to these. So you should always have negative for glucose. If you have any glucose in there, that means that there's too much glucose in your blood. It can be an indicator of diabetes. Ooh, fun thing too. The smell can also be an indicator. So if you have glucose, it might smell sweet. There's also a disease called maple syrup disease that makes your urine smell like maple syrup. If it's cloudy or bloody, that can be indicative of a urinary tract infection, some damage. Specific gravity, SG, is how concentrated it is. So if you have really watery urine, you'll be down here, concentrated up here. And it's not necessarily an indicator of something bad, but if it's higher, you might be dehydrated. Right? Blood you want to be negative. If you have red blood cells in your urine, that means that there's damage in your kidneys. Or you have an infection, something's going on. pH, a wide variety, again, nothing to really worry about in general. It's usually indicative of your diet, right? So if you take in more vegetables, which are basic, you'll have more base to get rid of. So your urine will be basic, right? Fun. If proteins are coming out, that might mean that there's damage to that glomerulus, the capillary in the kidneys where we're filtering blood. And white blood cells are going to be indicative of issues too, like an infection. So what you would do is you'd take your results and you would see some examples and see what was wrong with the people based on their results. Exciting times. And if you have what's in the blood and what's in your urine and you can compare those, then you can see like basically exactly how the kidneys are functioning, because you know exactly what they've been able to filter and so on. Okay, hope you have a lovely day. Think about all these things when you pee next time. Okay, bye.